Good morning, everyone. I'm Shweta and I'll be your presenter for the day. We're just waiting for 2 or 3 minutes more so that all the participants can join in here and then we will start. Hi, everyone. Let's start with our PPT. I'm Shweta and I'll be your presenter for the day. As an examined research project, there are certain formalities that must be fulfilled in order to be successful in your PhD program. Some of these will concern the way in which the thesis is presented, how it is submitted, and how it is examined. So there are also certain substantive requirements, such as the need to include a thorough literature review. So as the name suggests, a literature review is an overview of the published articles or the book chapters which is relevant to a particular topic. So in today's webinar, we are going to cover about how what is the correct process to conduct a review of literature, what are the various types of literature reviews, how you can decide on which citations are good to be used in your literature review and which citations are not good. Then what are the tips and tricks to develop or to write a literature review? How you can derive a research gap for your study and how you have to present the research gap in your research work. Then the third part of the presentation will look for the research objectives, that how you can set up the research objectives for your study and how many research objectives are enough for your research study. My team is there. You can ask your questions in the chat box and you can write the questions as well there. So we will answer to your questions. Otherwise, I'm going to take all your questions at the end of the PPT, or maybe within during the PPT, I'll take up some questions in between. So I'm starting with the PPT now. I hope all of you can see my screen and my voice is also audible to all of you. All right, fine. So what is the real purpose of doing a literature review? So there is a difference, like what usually people think about literature review and what is the real purpose of doing literature review. So generally when we talk to scholars, they think that literature review is generally used to fill up the thesis with lots of similar studies, with lot of materials. You can study about the similar papers and you can write a short essay about each of them. Then few scholars also think that we are just studying about the researches which is done on a similar topic and we can support the preconceived notion about the topic. But actually, the real purpose of doing literature review is not just to read about what is being done, but also to understand that what has been established by now, what is there which is accepted and what is there which is not being accepted yet in the field of study, in whatever field of study we are into. So what is not accepted and what is accepted, what are the areas of controversy or conflict which are there among the different school of thoughts, what are the problems or issues that are there which are unsolved by now, and maybe you can extend that problem so that you can find a solution for that problem, and even you can do a new research on it. What are the emerging trends and the new approaches which are there? Maybe if there is any study which is done, let's say in 2000 or maybe beyond 2000, and today there are new trends, new approaches, and you can redo that study. So the purpose of literature review is to find out that what is already done and what can be done further so that you can contribute to that area of knowledge. So then there are different types of literature review which you can do depending upon the area of research you are doing. Let's say there could be different areas of research. It could be a social science research. It could be a management medical research. It could be a law related research. It could be a technical engineering research. So depending upon the subject of research you have, the type of research you are doing, you can have different types of literature review as per your subject. So few I have listed down here, which says the first is argumentative literature review. So this form examines that literature selectively in order to support or refute an argument. Wherever there is a contradictory or a contrarian viewpoint, there you can use this argumentative literature review, which is generally happens in the field of political science, or maybe topics which is, let's say, related to educational reforms, immigration policies, wherein people are having a contradictory viewpoint or an argumentative viewpoint. There you can use this argumentative literature review. The second type of literature review is integrative literature review, which is, I think, the most common literature review which we are using in social sciences researches, wherein what we are doing is we are reviewing and criticizing the literature which is already available on a topic, and we are presenting an integrated viewpoint on that particular topic. So this is generally we are doing for all the social sciences researchers, wherein we are just reviewing about a topic, criticizing it, and then presenting it in let's say in a paragraph format, that this is what being said in a particular review paper or in a paper. The third type of literature review is historical literature review, which name suggests that this is being done on studies which are related to history, wherein we are focusing on the research which is done throughout a period, like starting from the first time that issue or concept was there till now. What is being done as a history, we are studying in this historical literature review. The fourth type of literature review is methodological literature review. Here, a review does not always focus on what someone said. Like, we are not just focusing on the findings part of the review, but we are focusing on how that person has come to that conclusion. Basically, what are the methods that is being followed? What are the theories? What are the concepts that is being studied? Then what are the techniques, what are the research methodologies being followed in that particular research, how the data has been collected, what is the analysis technique the person has used. So a complete method of that particular review has been studied, and that becomes your methodological literature review. The next type of literature review is systematic literature review. Again, this type of literature review is very common these days, especially for the medical domains, clinical domain, nursing domains. So this type of literature review is specifically focusing on a particular research question. You have a specific research question, and then we try to study about, we try to find an answer for that particular research question. So I'll show you the example of systematic literature review later on. So there is a proper format of doing a systematic literature review, which we will study a little later. Then the last one is theoretical literature review. So this helps to establishes what theories which are already existing, and you can also establish a relationship between them. So let's say if your study is related to some theoretical part, especially within the science, technical and engineering researches, there we are going to use this theoretical literature review, wherein we are going to talk about the theories which are already existing regarding a specific topic. So these are the different types of literature review which you can use depending upon the subject area you have. Let's say, so it's just a quick overview on what we have discussed till now. So let's say if you are trying to do a research to find out if your research supports or refutes any existing theory. So there you can use argumentative literature review. If you are trying to see how over a period a research has been evolved, then you can use a historical literature review. Let's say if you are trying to build some new frameworks, some new models to validate an existing model, which is generally being used in all the social sciences researchers or management people are doing such kind of researches. So there we are using this integrative literature review approach. Now, next is methodological literature review. So if your research is on literature background or on psychology, there you can use methodological literature review. The next is theoretical. Like I said before, if your research area is related to science, engineering, any technical background if you have, there you can use theoretical literature review. And if you are from the health and medicine domain, nursing, clinical, all these medical related domains, if you belong to, then you can use a systematic literature review. So if you have any questions still here, you can ask me. Then we will proceed to the next topic. For management, as I mentioned, for management subjects, you can do integrative literature review, wherein we are trying to build some new kind of frameworks or models, which we usually call as conceptual framework or conceptual model. There we can use integrative literature review. For law subject, we can use methodological literature review, or sometimes historical literature review can also be used if we are talking about some specific laws. Argumentative can also be used depending upon the kind of topic you are studying in law domain. For chemistry, again, it depends that what type of topic you have. Maybe depending upon the topic, you can have a combination of literature review. Depending upon the topic. In chemistry, we need to check for the topic. The length of LR, it depends on the total number of pages you are targeting for your entire thesis. So for an example, if you are taking 100 as your total length for the thesis, you can have approximately 25 to 30 pages of LR. Deepudev, for engineering domain, as I mentioned on screen, theoretical LR you can use. For pharmaceutical science, systematic literature review can be used. For marketing, we can use integrative literature review. Almost all the domains I have mentioned over the screen, you can just take all your, whichever domain you belong to, accordingly you can select the literature review. For 250 pages thesis, you can approximately have 50 to 80 pages of LR. All right, so all the questions are somehow related to this domain. So I have mentioned all the possible domains here. For social sciences, Charles, I have mentioned for social sciences, you can have integrative LR. So I'm now moving to the next part of the presentation, that how once you have the literature review, how you can present it, how you can organize your literature review. So there are three ways in which you can organize. One is the chronology of events. The second is the publication, and the third is the thematic or the conceptual categories. Now, first one, chronology of events, as the name suggests, the manner in which the events were happening, the order in which the event is happening, you can mention in the same order. Let's say if you're talking about some historical studies, so as per the years, how the researchers have been evolved over the number of years, that you can mention in the same chronology. Then the second one is by the publication. Let's say for any specific topic, there are versions of publication. The first version of publication was, let's say, published in 2015. The next was published in 2017. The later version was published in 2019. So you can you can mention all the versions in the same order as their publication year. Then the third one is important, which we generally follow, is the thematic or conceptual categories. So let's say if you are working on a particular topic, you can divide the topic as per the concepts. Let's say, for an example, I'm taking a very simple example. You're talking about consumer behavior. So initially you are going to write about some introduction about consumer behavior. Then what are the factors that impact consumer behavior? So these are the categories of information which you have divided. Now in the first section, you can talk about all the literature which generally talks about the introduction about the consumer behavior. The second category will talk about the factors which affects the consumer behavior. So depending upon the categories, you can divide, you can organize your papers, your references. Also, you can sometimes, which we are using generally, we are organizing the reviews as per the authors. Let's say first author has said this, second author has said this, third author has said this. So that can also be done within the conceptual categories. Now, what are the basically tips or points which you need to consider while you are selecting any particular citation for your literature review? So there are 4 points which you need to consider. First is, if let's say you see any reference which is having a good impact factor. First of all, I would like to explain what is impact factor. So if if a particular citation or if a particular reference is cited a number of times, it increases the impact factor of that particular reference. So generally, if what scholars do, they see the impact factor of that particular reference or that particular journal, and they decide basis on that impact factor, which is not true. If there could be a case that a person has cited, like scholars have cited that reference many a times because there was something wrong in that paper. Maybe the methodology was wrong there, the research design was poor, the conclusion is questionable. So there could be a case that a reference has a good impact factor, but it may not have that good value. So you have to take care of that references, that whether it is only having a good impact factor or it is contributing to some knowledge as well. The second point is the references which are published many years ago, they have a good impact factor, because let's say if a reference has been published 20 years back, so for 20 years it has been cited, so obviously it will have a more impact value. So that also you need to consider, that again, if a reference is just having a good impact value, or it is also having a good source of knowledge. The third point is you need to examine the multidisciplinary scope of citations. Let's say if you have you come across any citation which is talking about the multidisciplinary approach, is talking about 2 or 3 topics together, that reference can be considered as a good reference that you can consider in your work. And the fourth point which you need to consider is whether the source is referenced alone or always grouped with other sources. Many a times you will see a reference is being cited along with different or other references. So that means the particular reference is not capable enough of citing alone. So you need to ignore such kind of references. You can always cite the primary reference, not the secondary one. So you can cite the primary reference in that case. So these are just 4 tips which you can consider while you are finalizing your reference to be included in your literature review chapter, or maybe in papers if you are doing literature review for a research paper. Okay, so next topic is annotated bibliography and literature review. Basically, annotated bibliography is also a form of literature review, which if, let's say, if you are doing a research for the first time, or you are just a new scholar for PhD, then you can also go for annotated bibliography. The difference between annotated bibliography and literature review is literature review is generally a multiple text analyzed form of review, wherein you are analyzing multiple literatures and you are presenting that in the form of a paragraph. Whereas annotated bibliography is done for a single reference paper. You are having, let's say, 50 papers. You are going to study one paper, and what are the key points that you noted in that one paper that you are going to study, that you are going to note down. So I'll just explain this by an example. This is an example of annotated bibliography. So I have just pasted 2 reviews of 2 research papers. So these are the categories which I need to look into the paper, which is title, objective, methodology, findings, and limitations or future work. So in the first column, I'm going to write the title of my research paper, which I am reviewing. Then what is the objective of that particular paper which I am reviewing, the methodology used, the findings of that paper, and what are the limitations or future work which are mentioned already in that paper. That is just I'm going to review from there and write in the table format. Similarly, I'll do for the second paper, and likewise I'll do for all the papers which I have to review. Whereas the normal literature review looks like this, that let's say you are, we have a specific topic which says that importance of understanding customer-based brand equity for successful marketing of products in retail store. So let's say I have read 2 papers. So what I read for the first paper, I'm just going to write down here in a paragraph format. Then I'm taking the second paper, I'm citing it here, and whatever I have studied in that paper, I have reviewed in that paper, that is what I'm writing in the second paragraph. So this is just a small example which shows a difference between literature review and the annotated bibliography. The next topic is process of doing literature review. How, let's say you have to start with a literature review, so how you can do it. So there are 3 steps which are involved. First is locating your literature wherever it is available. Second is reviewing it, and third is writing it. So first step is locating. Locating means you have to search for the appropriate literature review. Now let's say I'll just take the same example of study which is related to consumer behavior. So if you are doing a study which is related to consumer behavior, you have to search on Google Scholar. That's the best source for getting the reliable papers. So you can start searching on Google Scholar and you can write your keywords. So initially there is a process that you need to also identify the right keywords so that you can get the right papers for your work. If your research is related to consumer behavior, you can select keywords which is related to consumer behavior. Or if you are having, let's say, customer based brand equity, then consumer behavior, then you are talking about some product as well. So you need to identify all your keywords, and accordingly you have to search, which comes under the first stage of locating your literature. Then once you have all the literature available with you, then you have to review it. So again, you need to find out the keywords, like your research is related to consumer behavior. So whatever the literature you have identified, you have finalized, you need to review that literature and you have to find for the keywords that if it is talking about consumer behavior or not. And you need to analyze and evaluate that particular reference, that whether it is related to your topic or not. Once you are done with the review, once you have selected that, okay, out of let's say 50 references, you can use 10 references for your work, then you need to finally write the review of those 10 references. Now, there could be some questions which you can ask yourself when you are analyzing the literature, when you are finalizing that whether you need to use this literature, you need to use this paper for your literature review or not. So few questions which I have listed down here that you can ask yourself: that was the research question of the study you are reviewing, what were the authors trying to discover. So basically, you should have the research questions, the topic, objectives of your own research ready, and then you need to match that. What are the research questions of the study which you are reviewing? Are they matching with your research study? What are the authors trying to discover in that particular research? Then was the research funded by a source that could influence the findings? Because if a research is funded, probably there are chances that the research, the findings are biased, or maybe they are not accurate. So that you need to find out. Then what are the research methodologies being used in that particular research? How the literature has been analyzed, how the sample was discovered, how the variables are used in that particular research, how they have arrived to a particular conclusion. Then was there is there any possibility of doing a further research on that topic? Is there any conflicting studies? Are the results contradictory? So these are some of the questions which you can look into when you are reviewing for the literature part. And once you see that all the answers are favorable to your topic, like you can find out all the answers, and those answers are relevant to your own research as well, then you can take a decision to finally include that reference in your own study. So here are some quick tips on how you can write your literature review. So first point is you need to use the evidence. Whatever the information, whatever the knowledge you are taking from a particular reference, and when you are writing it down in your own research, you need to cite that knowledge as well. That, let's say, you have taken a particular data from a particular paper. When you are writing down in your own research, you need to cite that paper as well, because that will act as an evidence that whatever the information you have written down in your chapter is backed by someone, is already researched by someone. So you need to provide evidence for whatever you are writing. The second point is you have to be selective. You have to be selective in terms of what information you have to write in your chapter, and what information you have to ignore for your chapter. You cannot have all the information written down in your chapter, because again it will become too lengthy, and we always have a limit on the page count. You cannot have a 400 or a 500 pages long thesis. So you have to be very much selective, that whatever is the most important information for your topic, that only you need to consider while writing your chapter. The third point is you need to use quotes, but you have to use it very rarely, wherever it is required. Because whenever you are writing, you are taking information from someone's else paper, you may find some information which is very much useful, and you cannot even paraphrase that information. So there you can use quotes, means double quotes you can use, and you can have the same information as it is in your paper. The fourth point is you have to keep your own voice. Obviously, we all know that we are taking information from other papers, we are referring some other references, but again, we just need to take information from there and we have to write in our own words. The last point is use caution when paraphrasing. So whenever you are paraphrasing the content, you have to be careful that the essence, the meaning of that information would remain same. Generally, what scholars do while doing the paraphrasing, they completely change the meaning of that particular information, whatever you are planning to cite. So the information, the meaning, the essence of that information would remain same, although you can paraphrase it, but the meaning should remain same. So these were some quick tips which you can consider while writing your literature review. So this was all about literature review. Now we'll move to the next part, which is what is research gap. So here I can take some questions if you have related to the literature review. Uh, there is a question from Raghavendra that you need to know about conceptual framework. So that I will cover in the later part of the PPT. I have included conceptual framework as well in this PPT. So I'm going to cover that just after this topic. Is annotated bibliography similar to tabulated literature review? Yes, we sometimes call annotated bibliography as tabulated literature review, but the correct word is annotated bibliography. So if I think you are referring annotated bibliography as tabulated literature review, so I think that is same, but the correct term is annotated bibliography. Varsha, you are asking about how about PubMed advanced search, and yes, you can, if your topic is related to medical domain or your area of research is medical, then you can also use PubMed advanced search. Google Scholar, I have told because that is the basic one. If you are a beginner for your PhD, then you can go for Google Scholar, or even you can search on ResearchGate. So these are just for the beginners. Reshma, yes, we can give you a plagiarism report, but we use Turnitin for it. Madhusmita, you can, for education subject, you can also have a integrated LR approach, but again, it depends upon the topic, like what kind of research are you going to do in the education domain. It can be done purely in a qualitative way as well, and it can be done in a quantitative way. So it depends. You can discuss with us on email regarding this. There is a question from Wrinkle. In thesis, do we also need to include annotated bibliography along with thesis? So it depends totally on your university. Some universities have this format that they are going to, they ask about annotated bibliography in the thesis. So if your university is having such format and they are accepting it also, so there you can use annotated bibliography along with the literature review. Many universities in India, they are asking about annotated bibliography along with the literature review. So if your university have that kind of guideline, so then you can go for annotated bibliography as well. Wrinkle, there is another question from your end is about when do you know you have researched enough, as new papers keep on coming and we feel that we have not covered enough. Yes, so that is again one of the limitation of doing a PhD research is this only, that we are having a limited time and we have to consider limited resources for this. So like, if you feel that the new information or the new papers which are coming up are really relevant for your topic, then you can include it. But obviously you have to stop it somewhere, because you have to conclude, you have to finish it off your thesis as well. So it depends, the new papers which are coming, which you are going through, are relevant to your research or not. Okay, there's a question from Neha. Do we need to ask from university before submitting our research paper that can we write? Generally, we are not doing annotated bibliography for research papers. It is done for thesis. So that you can check from your university that whether for thesis annotated bibliography is required or not. We are not doing it for research papers because there is no such guideline for research papers to include annotated bibliography. All right. So now we'll move to the next stage of our webinar, which is regarding the research gap. So basically, a research gap is something, is any question or problem which is not being answered in any of the existing studies or research which are done within a particular field of research. So I'll just explain this using this diagram. You can have a look on this diagram that there are certain studies which are done on a particular topic, but there is still something which is not being covered or which is missing in all the researches, and that becomes your research gap. So it could be like sometimes a research gap exists when there is a concept, or when there is a new concept. There has been an outdated concept and you can introduce some new concepts in that. Then there are some outdated information is there and you can update that using some new methods. Then it could also be like a particular section of the population has not been studied upon, and you can have a research on a particular section, on a particular geographical location as well, on a particular section of the society. Then the other could be like there are no studies done for a specific country as well. Let's say a study has been done in America, but it has not been done in India. So you can have a similar study conducted in India as well. There are types of research gaps which are available. First is the evidence gap. Knowledge gap could also be there. Then practical knowledge gap, methodology gap, empirical gap is also there. Then theoretical gap, population gap. So all these gaps can be there, and you can pick up these gaps and formulate a new research. Now, from where you can find out these gaps? Now, as we discussed before, that initially, obviously, you need to do a literature review. Whenever you are doing a literature review, you are having a particular reference, you can always go to the section of that paper which talks about recommendations or suggestions for future research. In every research paper, whichever you will go through, you will find a section there which talks about recommendation or suggestions for future research, or maybe a conclusion is also written there. So from there you can find out a research gap, that okay, there is an a possibility of extending this research further, and that you can pick up as your own research. Or maybe some limitations were there for that particular for the research, which you can pick up, and you can consider that as your research gap and formulate a new research basis on the same. Now we'll come to the research objectives. What are research objectives? Once you are done with the literature review, uh, by literature review, you can find out the research gap. Now, once you have the research gap and you know that what exactly you need to do for your own research, then you have to frame the research objective, which basically serves to narrow the purpose statement, and which is directly linked to your findings also, that what are you actually going to find out in your own research, that you are going to frame in the research objectives. Also, what is the specific thing which you are aiming to achieve in your particular research? So research objectives generally talk about this. And how should your research objectives be stated? So it should always be in a action verb format. Like it should always start with to compare, to calculate, to assess, to determine, to verify. So your research objectives should always start with action verbs, and you have to avoid all non-active verbs. Let's say to understand, to study. So you cannot justify at the end that what you understood or what you have studied, but you have, if you have the objectives which talk about to compare, to calculate, to assess, so there you can have a conclusive finding as well. The next topic says that how many research objectives should you have? So always we have this question from our scholars, that what is the right number of objectives you should include in your research? So it depends on two things. First is, what is the research approach you are using? Is it a quantitative approach? Is it a qualitative approach? Or is it a mixed approach? Then the second point to be considered is, what is your research output? Like, is it a PhD thesis, or a master's dissertation, or a research paper? So let's say if you are using a mixed approach, obviously you will have more number of objectives. Similarly, if you are doing a research for a PhD program, then again you are having a more number of objectives, but again you can have approximately 5 to 10 objectives depending upon the research questions. So initially, before finalizing your research objectives, you should have your research questions ready. Then for each research question, you should develop a research objective. So now I'm going to discuss all this thing, the literature review, research gap, and the research objectives using an example. Before that, I can take up some questions if you have related to the literature review, related to research gap and research objectives. By now, whatever we have covered, if you're not clear, we can repeat it, or I can answer your doubts here. Okay, okay, I have receiving requests to repeat this research gap. So let me repeat that. A few questions which I received for research gap, whether research gap is available in all fields. Yes, it is available in all fields. So you need to find out by doing a literature review. Then you can identify the research gap. What is the difference between research gap and problem statement? Okay. All right, so research gap is basically the missing element which you notice in the literature, what you have studied before. As I mentioned in this example, that let's say you have gone through 4 researches, but something is missing in all the 4 researches, which becomes your research gap. On the other hand, the problem statement is that, let's say, problem statement generally we are defining for the technical researches, wherein we are considering one base paper as in, let's say if your, for an example, your research is related to civil engineering, and you are finalizing one base paper means a paper which you are considering as a base for your own research. Whatever you are planning to do in your own research, you find a similar paper as per that topic, and that paper you consider as a base. Now, what is the problem which you identified in that paper is your problem statement, which you are going to extend, or you try to find an answer for that problem statement in your own research. So that is the problem statement. Problem statement is generally we define for one paper, for one base paper which we are finalizing for our own research. However, research gap is, we can find research gap for all the research areas, and we cannot have research gap from one paper. We need to study at least 5, 10, 15 papers to have a research gap. So you can have a research gap in terms of the concept, like if any particular concept has not been studied in any of the researches, so you can introduce that concept. Sometimes any outdated information is there, and you have some new and updated methodologies are available, updated information is there, so that you can also have as a research gap. Then if any specific population of people, population of has not been studied well in that research, that then also you can have, which generally depends upon the geographic locations. And if your study is, let's say, it's already mentioned in a particular reference, that you can extend it further by doing this. Always they mention for recommendations or suggestions for future research. So from there also you can have your research gap. I hope this is clear now, or still there are some questions on it. Yes, Wrinkle, if there is theory but not application of the same in particular area, which is called as empirical gap. Let me just go to that screen. Okay, so I'll just explain these gaps briefly. Evidence gap is, let's say there is a particular study, but there is no evidence for that research. So that is called as evidence gap. You can have the same study with a proper evidence now. Knowledge gap is, we have covered some aspects, but still few things are missing in that. So that becomes your knowledge gap. Practical knowledge gap is obviously the same thing, which talks about the practical applications of the same concept. Then methodology gap. Methodology gap is again, people have used one kind of a methodology, or let's say a set of methodology, but we can have some different set of methodology on it, and we can again have that research. Let's say if a person has done a research in a quantitative way, now you can have the same research in a qualitative way as well. So that becomes your methodology gap. Empirical gap is, like Wrinkle said, that if a research is having a theoretical concept, but empirical, the practical part is not being done, that becomes your empirical gap. It could be vice versa. If empirical study is already there, but there is no theories which are relevant to it, so you can have a theoretical gap there and you can conduct a new research. Then population gap is again, if certain population is not being considered in that particular research. So again, you can have a research based on the population. So the example which I am going to discuss now, that is more related to population gap. Uh, okay, there's a question from Prashant Mishra. Can you please address question around how many research questions to have for management research? Yes. So generally, if we see the guidelines of university, we can have 5 to 10 research questions. But again, it depends on the topic. If we have a little broad topic, we can have at least 5 to 10 questions. If the topic is very small and we cannot have much in that topic, we can also have 4 or 5 research questions. And research objectives are always dependent upon research questions. So if you have 5 research questions, you will more or less will have 5 to 6 research objectives. Each research question will have one research objective. Praveen, difference between annotated bibliography and literature review is, when you are writing the review in a paragraph format, that becomes your literature review. When you write the same review in terms of, in the form of a table, that becomes your annotated bibliography. In annotated bibliography, you are specifically mentioning about each key term. Let's say what is the author name, what is the objective, what is the methodology being followed, what is the outcome of that research. So we have a specific column, and we are going to put information related to each of the column there. That is your annotated bibliography. But when you are summarizing this information in a paragraph, that becomes your normal literature review, or traditional literature review also, we call it sometimes. Reshma, can you please repeat your question, because I have to scroll it up to see your last question. Can you please repeat the question? There is a question from Pinky that what is the difference between knowledge and theoretical gap? Knowledge gap is, let's say you have researched on a particular topic, but you have missed some kind of information which is related to the topic in that particular research. Whereas a theoretical gap is, let's say you have done an empirical research, but some theories, some frameworks can also be developed on that topic, which is missing. So that becomes your theoretical gap. How many max LR required? LR required for what? For writing your thesis, for writing the literature review chapter, you are asking, Reshma? Is any chronological order is required for writing LR? It depends that which order you are considering for writing your LR chapter. So if, like, whatever the order you are following, whether it is a chronological order, maybe you are also you can also follow author wise approach. So whatever approach you decide, you need to follow that entirely for your chapter. You can also use chronological order if your topic is such that you can have that approach. Do we need to use the words epistemology and all in our writing? It depends, as per your topic. It totally depends. Reshma, you said that your university says LR should be more than 150. So that you have to follow that. If your university is saying that your LR should be more than 150, means 150 references you need to follow for your literature review. So maybe then in that case you might be targeting a lengthier thesis. So that you need to follow, because that is your university guideline. So, but generally it depends upon the length which you are targeting for your entire thesis. Empirical gap is, let's say, if any research is done on a theoretical part, but the empirical version of that research is not being done yet. So that becomes the empirical gap. If only the theories have been discussed, no practical, no empirical part has been done. Okay, Praveen Jadhav is asking how we can ensure that our literature search is more than sufficient for our research topic. Again, it depends. Let's say generally the normal criteria which we follow is if you are writing one page of literature review, you can have around 2 references. So again, it depends upon the length of the thesis which you are targeting. For an example, if you are writing a 50 pages of literature review chapter, you can at least have 100 or 120 references for that. Because if normally we go by the number of references, so every university is asking you to have at least 100 papers reviewed for literature review. So normally it comes around 2 papers per page. For all the domains, this is common, that the number of references you have to use for your LR chapter depends upon the total length you are targeting for that chapter and for the thesis. Approximately, you can have around, like, minimum references to be followed is around 80 to 100 is normal. If you have more references, then you can go for more than 100 references as well. 150 also, like Reshma said, 150 is also acceptable. And also it depends upon your university guidelines, or as your guide, your supervisor suggests. How I can found the gap during the PhD. You again, Madhusmita, you need to do the literature review, because you can have research gap only by doing the literature review. So if you have already started your PhD, uh, once you are writing your literature review chapter, you need to review all the references, and then you can find research gap. And like in literature review chapter, you also need to mention your research gap. So you can do that while doing your literature review for your thesis. Then also you can find the this research gap. Neha Arora asked that, can we write a research paper in an essay writing style also, like introduction, background, conclusion, and reference only? Yes, you can write that, but again, this introduction, background, conclusion, I'm not clear that whether you are asking for one research paper, like one research paper you can have into background, conclusion, or you are asking this for an entire chapter, like entire chapter you can have into background, conclusion, and reference. So I'm not clear on this question. Neha, you can rewrite your question again. What are the methodologies we use to find out the what research gap is found in the research? uh, Generally, the trick with what I have mentioned to find out the research gap is to see the recommendation or suggestions for future research for any paper. You can have at least 10 papers which are relevant to your subject area or to your topic, and you can go through the that last section of the paper. Once you read all these sections, now you will have that idea that, okay, this has not been done, and you can pick up this particular thing. So that's one trick which you can follow to find out the research gap. Vikas, you are asking about what will be contents or chapters in survey paper. Survey paper is actually a different topic which we can cover, might be next webinar. Uh, Preeti, you asked for how many reference we want to write for LR. Again, it depends on the length of your thesis. Is there any standard format for annotated bibliography? There is no standard format for doing annotated bibliography. It just depends upon the right amount of information which you can derive from a paper. So you can have as many as columns as you want. Like some people also do a column heading as what is the year of publication, what is the name of the paper, what is the publisher name, then what introduction talks about, what are the references being used, then what is the methodology. Now in methodology you can have details of what is the research design being followed, what is the sample size, what is the sample area, what is uh, how the data has been collected. So you can have as many as information for annotated bibliography, but there is no such standard format. But in case if your university is asking to do annotated bibliography, they will surely provide you some kind of a format which you can follow. For LR chapter, there is no such format to be followed, because LR chapter generally have all the subheadings, and those subheadings are totally related to your topic. So depending upon the topic you have, we generally have those subheadings, and in those subheadings we try to add all the reviews. So no specific format for writing LR chapter. It's just that sometimes in some researches we are going to add hypothesis in the LR chapter, conceptual framework in LR chapter. But if you talk about the subheads of LR chapter, that totally depends upon your topic. Okay, Santanu is asking if a certain combination of keyword is not available in search engine like Google Scholar. Does that mean the research with those keyword is not done yet? No. That does not mean that research has not been done. You can change the combination of your keywords, and maybe if that is not on Google Scholar, you can check normally on a normal Google. Maybe you can find some other keywords and that you can use. All right, so all the questions are almost done. So we'll move to the next part of our PPT now, which is the example of literature review. Can all of you see my screen now? It's the PDF I have opened on my screen. Is my screen visible to all of you? Is it visible now? Is it visible now? I have actually moved on to the next window. So this is the example of literature review which I was talking about. You can see this chapter. This is being written in a traditional way, like we do normal literature review. So a few of you were asking about the format. So this is a rough format which you can follow. Uh, it says, first of all, it says about the introduction of the study. Then we have formulated some subheads which are again related to the topic. which says that importance of understanding customer-based brand equity for successful marketing of products in retail store. And you can see all the references what we have reviewed is written in the author-wise approach. Like one author, what he said about a particular topic, we have concluded and we moved on to the next author. So this you can see. Uh, Then this is a next heading, the next subheading to be included in a literature review. Then the third heading, which says about relationship among customer-based brand equity dimensions. Now these subheadings are totally dependent upon the topic. So we cannot control that how many subheads we need to include. Depending upon the topic, we can have this. The next subhead says relationship among customer-based brand equity dimensions and overall brand equity. Now I'm moving down to show you the research gap, which you all can read once. We'll come to the conceptual framework as well. But before that, I'm going to show you this research gap. If all of you can able to read this, let me zoom it a little. This you can see, I'll just read it out. This says that this study examines about the influence of customer-based brand equity on buying behavior with the special reference to convenience goods in Kerala. The research gap identified in this study is that there are many studies on the influence of customer-based brand equity on buying behavior, but only very limited studies have focused towards the Kerala state. So this gap which I mentioned is a population gap. None of the study earlier which has been done on this buying behavior have not focused on Kerala. Another research gap identified on the basis of the extensive literature review is that most of the studies have taken other product segments for studying the influence of customer-based brand equity on buying behavior. So we have used convenience goods here. So convenience goods have not been taken for understanding the influence of customer-based brand equity on buying behavior. So this research gap you have identified after doing the literature review, and this is how you can present your research gap in your literature review chapter. I hope this is clear. Research gap, how we write research gap is clear to all of you. Now I'm coming back to my PPT. Now, the next topic which we discussed about was research questions and the research objectives. Now, I have taken the same example. You can read the research questions which talk about customer-based brand equity and how these research questions are related to research objectives. Like as I mentioned, your research objectives should be relevant to your research questions. So I'll just read out these research questions, which says that the first research question says, how important is understanding of customer-based brand equity for successful marketing of products in retail store? So this is your first research question. The second research question is how the organized and unorganized retail formats are penetrated in Kerala market. What is the relationship among customer-based brand equity dimensions? The third research question says that what is the relationship among customer-based brand equity dimensions and overall brand equity? Fourth research question says that how the overall customer-based brand equity affects on customer buying behavior. And the fifth research question says that what is the research model to be proposed for the factors influencing customer-based brand equity on buying behavior with special reference to convenience goods in Kerala. Now, if I move to the next slide, which says research objectives, you will see that all the research objectives are framed, taking into consideration all the research questions. So you can once have a look on these research objectives as well. As I mentioned before also, that the number of research questions you have, almost same or one or two extra you can have research objectives. So we have 5 research questions here. We can have approximately 6 research objectives, and you can see each of the research objective is starting with to assess, to understand, to propose. So these are the action verbs which you need to consider while you are framing your research objectives. Now, if we move to the next slide, if you're done with the research objectives, we will discuss how we can have conceptual framework. As I mentioned, I'm going to cover that as well in this PPT. So you can see some of the variables which we have identified from literature review. So again, another purpose of doing literature review is if you want to have a conceptual framework, you can identify variables from literature review. Now you can see on the screen that I have two main variables here in this topic, which is brand equity and the buying behavior. Now from literature review, we have identified these 4 variables of brand equity and 3 variables of buying behavior. Brand equity has brand awareness, brand association, perceived quality, and brand loyalty. So these are the 4 variables which is being identified from literature review. And for buying behavior, we have these 3 variables, which is price premium, brand preference, and purchase intention. Now, the next step which comes after we finalize variables from the literature review is to formulate your hypothesis, which is again a part of literature review. When you do literature review, you can, now you have 3 or 4 things from literature review. One is your research gap. Next is your research objective. Next is your variables which you can identify from your literature review, and your hypothesis. And basis on the hypothesis, you can also have your conceptual framework. So 5 things in total you can derive from a good literature review. Now, if you see all the hypotheses are somehow related to all the variables which we have identified from literature review. You can see brand awareness has an influence on brand associations, which are again 2 variables of brand equity. Likewise, you can see all the variables are somehow related here. We have shown a relationship among all the variables because this was one of our objectives. So you can see brand awareness has an influence on brand loyalty, then brand association with perceived quality with brand loyalty, and then the perceived quality with brand loyalty. So likewise, all the variables you can see, we have established a relationship between them. Now, basis on these hypotheses, this diagram, which is called conceptual framework, has been framed. You can see all the 4 variables which we have identified for brand equity has been mentioned here, which says brand awareness, perceived quality, brand loyalty, and brand association. And for the next variable, which we were having as buying behavior, So we were having three variables here: price premium, brand preference, and purchase intention. So this you can see has been listed down here: purchase intention, brand preference, and price premium. And basically, we have categorized this into independent variables and dependent variables. So your brand equity is considered as an independent variable here, whereas the price part, the buying behavior of a consumer, is considered as dependent variable. So this is how your conceptual framework can be developed. Now, again, if I just add little bit to this information, from this conceptual framework, you can again have your questionnaire, which I will share with you on your email ID. So if you have any doubts till here that you can ask. You can ask your questions now because we are almost done with the topic. Any questions you have till here that you can ask me? Okay, there is a question: conceptual framework will be written after hypothesis or before? We generally develop conceptual framework after hypothesis, because we have to, if you see on the screen, you can see I have mentioned hypothesis 1, hypothesis 2, hypothesis 3. So when we have hypothesis, actually we have to show the relationship of all the hypotheses using a diagram which is called conceptual. So you should have hypothesis first, then you move to the conceptual framework. Madhusmita, I'm not clear with your question. Is necessary for framing IV and DB? Um, I'm not clear with this question. Okay, are you asking that is it necessary to frame independent and dependent variables in social science research? Okay. So yes, if let's say if your topic is talking about some impact, like impact of one variable on another variable, if your study is something like that, then it is necessary that you should have a conceptual framework. Also, for all the social sciences researchers, if you are including conceptual framework, later on you are going to do a multivariate analysis just to test this model. So this adds to the quality of your research. So if you're aiming to have a good quality research, you should always go for conceptual framework, because that adds a good value to your research. Conceptual framework is always designed in this format only. You can have a small paragraph which basically defines about the independent variables and dependent variable. But generally, if you talk about conceptual framework, it is a diagrammatical representation of independent and dependent variables. So we always have this in a graphical format as only. How to frame hypothesis. Actually, there is no fixed format of framing a hypothesis. You just need to identify the variables from your literature review. That you have to list down all the variables, and then you need to show that how you have to establish a relationship between the two variables. So it's just that you need to establish a relationship between them. There is no fixed format of writing a hypothesis. Praveen, you can connect experts from Fivevidya through email, or you can call our consultants and they will connect you with the experts. Surbhi, please mention some another free softwares for what? For plat check or for what? Reshma, references can be mentioned after that chapter or should be included end of LR. Uh, when we are completing our thesis, when we are finally submitting our entire thesis, so references will be there at the end of all the chapters. After every chapter, it's not the format to write the references. So once your complete thesis is done, then you can have a list of references. There's a question from Sayed Adil. I had are 50 to 60 references enough for my? I'm not able to find more. 50 to 60 references are also enough, but again, what is the total length you are targeting for your entire thesis? That depends. 50 to 60 is also enough. You can have a detailed review from them. That you can do. Uh, this question is incomplete. From Vogiti Rishit, dependent variable and independent variables, I think this is incomplete question. Praveen, you can talk to our consultant they will connect you with the expert from chemistry domain. How should a research proposal for PhD admission be developed? Should all these areas be covered? Yes, Priya, if you are developing a research proposal for PhD admission, so obviously you need to have a good LR there as well. And also it is more important whenever you are presenting research proposal, you should have a good literature review done, because when you appear for your Viva, for your DRC meeting, so they always ask you one question, that why you have choose a particular topic. Now to answer that question, that why you have selected a particular topic for your research, you should have a good literature review done. You should have a good research gap identified. Then only you can answer that question well. So even if you are preparing your research proposal, you should have a good LR done, and also research gap should be identified very carefully. Conceptual framework and hypothesis you still can ignore while developing a research proposal, because in research proposal we are mainly focusing on the research topic, objectives, and the methodologies. If you want, you can include conceptual, but if you don't want, you can skip this part. But research gap is most important in research proposal as well. Uh, Okay, there is a question, show the LR of any engineering work as an example. We can mail you, you can ask us on email. For all of you, if you want any specific kind of samples of literature review, depending upon your topic, let's say if you are from engineering background, from medical background, from law, any domain, and if you want to see a specific literature review for your domain, so you can mail us and we will share the samples with you. Okay, there is a question from MKP. In literature review paper, is it required to critic find shortcomings in previous work? Is it essential a person having full command on the topic can only write a review paper? Obviously, it is not essential that if you are having a full command on the topic, then only you can write a review paper. Review paper basically talks about that what is being done in a particular topic, in a particular field. So while writing review paper, you are just reviewing what is being done on a particular topic, so you need not to have a full command there. Obviously, you can just review the papers and you can write it down. Yes, like, is it required to criticize someone or not? It depends that what kind of literature review you are writing. If you are writing a critical literature review, we call it as critical literature review, there you can criticize and write. But if you're writing a normal review paper, then you can write down it normally. There is no need to criticize it. Praveen, you can discuss with the experts today or maybe on Monday. Okay, there's a question from Shweta. In my synopsis, I've not included conceptual framework. Can I include it in my thesis? Okay, so conceptual framework is one thing which is not to be included in every research. Basically, we are including conceptual framework only in the social sciences researches. In technical researches, in engineering researches, we are not including conceptual framework. So Shweta, it depends that what is your research topic. If you belong to a social science background and if your topic is related to social science, then you should include conceptual framework. But again, it depends on your topic. So you can discuss with us personally on email or maybe on call regarding your topic, and then we will guide you that whether you have to include conceptual framework or not. Vikas, there's a question from Vikas that can you explain how to extract variables in review? So there is again not a fixed format of extracting variables. It is just that you have a main topic. Let's say I have that brand equity as my main variable in my topic. So what I will do is I'm going to review all the articles, all the references, and what I feel is the most relevant variable which I can find and I can use in my research, that I'm going to finalize as my variables. So you can have n number of variables from the literature review, but again, since we are doing a PhD research, so it is not possible for us to study all the variables. That is why we are just considering any 4 or 5 variables which we feel, like you as a researcher feel is most important or more relevant to your research, that you can use. There's a question from Neha Arora. Hypothesis is problem statement. No, hypothesis is not problem statement. Hypotheses are basically the assumptions which we have for our research. So problem statement is different and hypotheses are different. They are not same. Wrinkle, okay, any limitation on number of hypotheses? No, there is no limitation on number of hypotheses. In fact, we have seen, like I have personally seen researches wherein people have used 30 to 40 hypotheses as well. And that is considered as a good research, because whenever you are having more number of hypotheses, you are having a clarity on the relationship between the variables. So you are clearly establishing a relationship between the variables if you are having more number of hypotheses. So there is no limitation on the number of hypotheses to be used. But if you have more number of hypotheses, your analysis would be very lengthier. So that point you need to consider. There's a question, in which condition can we come up with a mediate variables? Depends upon topic. If your topic is something like, you can have a mediating and a moderating variable also. So obviously we have to come up with a mediating and moderating variable. In that case, it depends on your topic. Praveen, we can plan for such webinars for field specific, for science, for chemistry, we can plan for it. But actually, moreover, the theory part would remain same, whether you belong to a science domain, to chemistry domain, or any domain. The let's say the topic which we covered today, the literature review, how you have to do literature review, that would remain same. So there would be no specific information maybe which you can get for a subject related webinars. Is hypothesis number is same as per the number of research questions? Uh, it may not be same. You can have more number of hypotheses as compared to the research questions. So it depends, but it is not necessary that you would have a same number of questions as same number of hypotheses as research questions. Yes, Wrinkle, we mention about null or alternate hypothesis while mentioning the research. While mentioning the hypothesis, we mention about null and alternate. For social science, the ideal length of thesis will be around 150 pages, 120 to 150 pages, and once you compile it, it will come approximately around 175 or 200 pages, which is the ideal length for social science. You can also start from 100 pages. That will also give you a good thesis. Pooja, it is from your university. The number, any guidelines for number of pages, it will be from your university. So that you have to follow. Whatever is your university guideline, that you need to follow for the number of pages. All right, so we are done with all the questions. If you have any other questions, you can mail us on the email ID, or you can always contact us, and you can get in touch with our consultants. Thank you so much for your time.